Hi, so today we're going to learn about the third stage of developing yeast dough where fermentation first occurs. Um, when you're making bread, during the bread process, there are three ingredients and one condition for fermentation to take place. Excuse me. First, we need a liquid like water or milk, and the liquid needs to be warm between about 100 and 130 degrees Fahrenheit. The second ingredient is sugar, some kind of sugar, like a glucose of any kind. So when we're making bread dough, we add sugar to the water. And when we're making an enriched dough, like a Danish or a cinnamon rolls, we add a liquid like milk. And milk already has glucose in it, so we don't have to worry so much about sugar. But today we're just talking about basic yeast dough. So we're going to add the sugar, and I'm using honey to the water, and the water is warm. It's about 110 degrees or so. And then we're going to add the third ingredient, which is yeast. So at this point, we've got three ingredients that we know we need to deal with. Warm water, yeast, and honey. And the three of those together, I'm going to mix those three together, and it's going to start reactivating the yeast. And what is yeast? Yeast, in its dry form, is inactive. It's a single-celled plant microorganism. It's cousin to the mushroom. And with the three ingredients in a warm environment, the inactive yeast will reactivate and come to life. So the activation is happening. It's called fermentation. And what's happening is that the yeast is becoming alive and reconstituting, and it's eating and burping and creating two byproducts. It's creating alcohol, which gives bread a distinct flavor, and it also creates carbon dioxide, which are those bubbles that you're going to see later on in this video. And the bubbles get trapped into the dough, actually the gluten strands in the dough, and it helps it to rise. It gives it structure. I want to create a few possible variants that could happen during fermentation that may or may not make yeast activate. And those three conditions we're going to look at together. The first condition is that I'm going to take warm water and I'm going to take sugar, and I'm going to mix those two together and see if the yeast actually reactivates itself. And if you're looking at it, the mixture does have some activity. There's something going on there. It's definitely dissolved, but after a while, with nothing to eat, no glucose for the yeast to eat, it's kind of like looking around saying, I'm hungry, what can I eat? And nothing happens, so it goes back to sleep. It doesn't do anything. It just sits there. Is it dead? I don't know. In the second scenario, I'm going to use water that's above 130 degrees with sugar in it, so it has something to eat, and I'm going to add the yeast. And I mix all of that together, and I see that the mixture is dissolved, but the yeast isn't doing anything. It's completely just sitting there doing nothing. It's activated, but what's happened is that the yeast got too hot and it died. We killed the yeast. Or I did, sorry. On the third variant, I'm going to go back to the first scenario where I only mixed together the water and the yeast, and it started to wake up and then became inactive. And now I'm going to add some honey, which is going to be glucose, turns to glucose. Let's see whether that first one, if the yeast actually died from not eating or if it became inactive. What do you think happened? So let's have a look. Did fermentation begin? Did it have a bite to eat? Yep, It did. Let's look. It had a little bite to eat, and it reactivated itself, and fermentation continued.